All right guys, welcome back to the channel, and here we go again with the boat. And this time hopefully we're gonna get to the bottom of the problem. Overheating, according to the last mechanic that came by and put that computer on the system, there was no error codes. So what we did is we unplugged one of the plugs of the manifold, and surely it was clogged inside there with debris and stuff like that. So there's a very good possibility that he may be right, where the manifolds somewhere may be clogged and water flow is restricted, and that's why we're getting the overheating. So let's see, because now we have the manifolds. This is the elbow riser or elbow, and we're gonna go ahead and start dismantling the first one here. So stay tuned, and here we go. All right, so the first things we're gonna do here is remove these 4 bolts, but before that we have to unscrew the linkage here for the transmission and throttle. So we're going to put this onto the side here, and it has a couple of screws here and here, and they look like they're like an Allen wrench or torque wrench. We're going to take those off first, and then we're going to take these 4 off and start dismantling little by little until we get it all off. This plug here, most of these plugs, if you can get to them like this one is, it's better to take them off now than later. Later may be a problem, because once you have this big piece loose, it's really hard to hold it down and take off these plugs. So the most you can take off here, the better it is for later. All right, we got to move the throttle forward so that the linkage opens up and moves out of the way of the screws that we need to take off. All right, this screw here for the throttle linkage here was a little tough, so what I did is I put the screwdriver on there, actually the torque, and I put it on the screw head and then tapped it on the top here several times, and then it just comes loose completely without no problem. All right, so what I did here, I have these little zip locks. I write down throttle screws, starboard side. So we're going to take off the screws from here, put them inside here so we don't lose them. And this is the screw we just took off. We're going to just put it inside a little bag here, keep it safe, so we won't lose anything, and then know where everything goes back. So now we're going to take off the other screw back here, and it's right here. And that one was pretty soft. It was just one of them that was really stuck in place, but they come out pretty easy. Okay, the linkage is loose now. I see I have one more screw under there. I'll leave that one in there for a while, hold it in place, and then let me take off the bottom one off first. There we go. And just make sure you hold the screws, because once they come out, they could fall all the way down to your bilge, and it's going to be difficult to find. So now we're ready to take off the last screw. It's only 3 of them on the linkage here, and this whole thing comes off just like that. So we're just going to put it to the side, out of the way, and now we have everything loose here. We're ready to take off these 4 screws here. Okay, as I said earlier, it's probably better to take this off here now, or at least loosen them up, which is probably what I'll end up doing. Just loosen it up so we won't have to do a lot of force there when we have it loose. It's going to be more difficult. All right, so now we're going to go on the 4 bolts there. All right, for the bolt here, 9/16 socket, and it fits just right. So we're going to start taking off these right here. Okay, that one's loose, that one's loose, that one's already loose, and the last one, it's loose. Now these were pretty easy to take off. Okay, before we take the whole thing off, I want to go ahead and loosen up the clamps back here so we can take off the elbow. And we'll do that next. Loosen up this clamp. Now that clamp was pretty loose already. I guess you have to check these once in a while, make sure they're all tightened. This one's pretty loose, both of them for that matter. We're going to loosen them up, not all the way, just enough for it to get loose. And this hasn't been here too long, so we should be able to take it off pretty easy. All right, so here we go with the continuation here, and finish taking off all these bolts. They're not really hard tight, but they're firm in there. At the end it'll get pretty loose. And the next one, I think we're at we can take them off with our hands now. That's pretty much off almost. And the last one here. Alright, that one got pretty loose. And the fourth one. The order that you want to take off these things is really up to you. You could just get everything ready and loose and then take off the clamps and the little holes down here. Yeah, they're pretty loose. I can take them off by finger now. That one's out. You see this one here. And this one's pretty loose. And the last one here. Okay. Using the end of the ratchet to make it easy to take off in this one here, because you can't put your finger around in there, and that way we'll get them all loosened up. Okay, that one's off and they're all off now. Okay, now we're going to take off this one right here and loosen that up, loosen this up here, and then the one more hose under there that we need to loosen up before we take off the manifold. For now we can take this off with no problems. That's pretty loose there. This is one of the hoses that we replaced, so that's a brand new hose there. And this whole thing, yeah, it's coming loose already. So we're going to take off the hose. See if it comes off. Yeah, it comes off pretty easy. It's a new hose, so shouldn't have any problems. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and loosen it up from back here, and then we're ready to take out this whole riser. Okay, that should be pretty loose now. And there we go. Pull it out from there, and you can see how that looks there. But that's usually normal. That's what happens to metal with salt water. We'll see. Let me put this out of the way, and I'll show you how everything looks inside. Alright, now we have the spacer, and the spacer, 4 bolts on the bottom there, just like we did on the top. We're going to go ahead and take this off. Now, the mechanic diagnosis told me that this manifold had some kind of blockage somewhere, and it's causing the overheating. So far I don't see any blockage there. That right there, normal for 3 years and a few months. This side here, normal for 3 years. I don't see any problems with this, so I don't understand the blockage just yet. I don't see any proof of blockage at the moment. So let's see once we take this one off and see what's going on down there. Alright guys, down here, this screw right here, there's a space between these two areas here. So with a ratchet, it's really difficult to put in there with a ratchet. So you're gonna have to use some kind of wrench, or a wrench ratchet that you can put in there and just click it side to side there, but they're all in between that little space there. There's this only this much room in there, so we're gonna use this one here to loosen them up. It's not difficult, but it's just a little uncomfortable where it's at, but other than that, once it's come loose enough where you can take it off with your fingers, like I can do now. I could probably take it off with the fingers now. See, yeah, it's a little difficult. The spacing in there is not too much, but I'm able to take it off, and there you go. And remember, these here, you're probably going to get replacements on the new set. Once we take them apart, we'll see what they have. But I think all this comes with new bolts. You want to use the new ones, not the old ones. Okay, that's the third one. And there we go. I'm just going to put them here for now. And then the last one, which is this one here. The last one, which is this one right here, that's the most difficult one because you have not too much space. You got a lot of things around it, so I got to see how I could put that one there and loosen it up, and then take it off with the wrench. All right, after loosening it up with the ratchet, just half a turn or maybe a full turn. You can't do too much because it'll get stuck on the top of this space right here, and then you can't take your ratchet out. But just enough to get it loose, and then you're able to do it with the wrench the rest of the way. This one's almost out already. This is the last bolt for the spacer, and that's basically it. After this one, it should pull off from the manifold. Okay, there we go. And that's that fourth screw. We'll keep them all there. Now we're ready to take the spacer off, and let me see if I can grab it by hand. And there we go. And the space here is really limited, so I'll get back to you in a few seconds. Okay, this is the underside of the spacer. Again, no blockage, normal for 3 years and a few months old. In here, same thing. You're still going to have a little bit of rust. Can't get rid of that. That's always going to be there. But I don't feel any blockage anywhere so far in any of these. Okay, this is the top of the manifold now. This is the gasket here. Again, I don't see any blockage there. Everything's clean, and it goes right through. As far as I can touch, it seems like it's clear. All right, and again, as I mentioned earlier, these plugs, now is the best time to at least loosen them up. You don't have to take them all off. See, now that one's loose, and then this one here, and there we go. And it's much easier to take off when you take out the manifold, because if you have to torque this with the manifold loose, it's just going to move all over the place, and it's going to be difficult. So we do that first now, so that way we don't have any problems later with these things here. So we're going to take off the manifold next. All right, so the next thing we're doing is loosening up all the bolts for the manifold. Now these are pretty loose. I haven't had any problem taking the first two off in the center there, and I'm assuming that the next ones at the ends should be just as easy to take off. And there's the one right there, and let's see, simple. And like I said, I service my engine pretty much a lot, so none of these things are going to be there solid or frozen in place. We can still take them off pretty easy, because this is something that you do every 4 or 5 years, not every 3 years like we're doing now. All right, I'm going to show you a little thing here that I learned from other people who's done this before. These bolts here are really long, and once you take these off, you're going to replace them with brand new ones that the elbow comes with. But the two of these screws we're going to take off, and we're going to cut them and make a bolt to slide on the manifolds, the new manifolds, once we're ready to slide them on. So what we do is we get one of these bolts here, these two, cut them, and then we're going to put them on one end of the manifold on the block and the other one on the other side of the block. And all we have to do with the new manifolds, once we have them in there, and we just slide it in with the gasket in it to hold in place without everything falling off and trying to put one bolt and holding the other side and all that. You avoid doing all that problem. So I'll show you how I'm going to cut this and where I'm going to cut them at, and that way you can have that for your installation. It's going to make it much more easier. We cut these bolts 1 inch longer than the manifolds, so that way we can take them off easier when we're done. After grinding the ends clean, we did a slit so we can use a flathead screwdriver to remove them. Alright, we just took off the manifold and everything seems to be clean. The next thing we're doing in the block of the engine, we're scraping off all these areas over there, so that way when they put the new gasket, it's smooth and nothing is in the way to have any exhaust escape. The second thing is these pieces here, okay, for the hoses on the bottom of the manifold, we have to take this off and put it on the new one. And the same thing with this spacer here, there's a little barb here, we have to take that off and put it on the new one as well. So that's what's next. But for the moment, I can tell you what the mechanic said, that we had some blockage. So far I see no blockage anywhere. I just hope that this is the solution for that overheating, because $1,000 and something now down the drain if this is not the issue. All right guys, we just took off this valve off of here, and we noticed that this bottom part here has like a little, it's like a check valve. It has a little ball inside, and you could hear it there. It was stuck, and when we cleansed out the openings here, water will come out from one side but not from the other, or from this one it won't come in and will not come out from this side. So that little ball inside was stuck on the little tiny little hole that it's in there. So I don't know if you can see it there, but yeah, you should probably see something there. That little hole in there, the little balls get stuck in that little hole and don't let the water run through one direction, and it only runs the opposite direction. So this one now goes on the new manifold. But this is important when you take this out, and if you don't hear that little ball in there moving, that little ball is stuck. So what we did is we put a pin into this side, little tiny hole there, and you push that little ball in there, you pushed it in, and it falls out of place, and now it's loose. Before it wouldn't do that. So we're ready to go to the next step and install this onto the new manifold. Okay, the next thing we're doing here is putting Teflon tape on the threads, and so we can get it ready to put it back on the manifolds. All right, we put this back in place. You have to make sure that you line this to the same direction it was when you took it off. Make sure if it's facing front, make it face front like we have it here. Same thing. This one is the second hose, and I think that's it. We're ready for this one. Now we're ready to put some plugs up here, and then we're ready to install. All right, now we're tightening the plugs, and what we did is, the first thing we did is put it in by hand. Make sure you're not cross-threading, and then you could go ahead and tighten them up. And these plugs, you could use your ratchet directly. You don't have to put one of the Allen wrenches that I bought. The Allen wrench set you use for other ones, like the little one here. We're going to need that Allen wrench set. And this, you tighten all the way to the end until it's seated, and then you'll do a little bit more, and that's it right there. And the next one, let's go ahead and seat it. Okay, it's almost seated, and then a little bit more, and that's it. All right, we're ready to put the first manifold in, and the next thing we're going to do is put those two studs in place, which is what's going to hold the manifold in place for us, make it much easier, because all we have to do is put the gasket on it, slip the manifold in, and then tighten the two middle bolts. So I'm going to put that on there now. That's the first one. And this is something you just put in by hand. Just turn it until it just doesn't go anymore. Don't have to tighten it up or anything. It's just a stud to be able to put the manifold in there. All you have to do is just slide it in place. It makes it much more easier. See how easy that is? It just slides in. Now we're going to put the gasket, and here we have it here. Good thing this gasket, they came ready to make it easy as well. So it has these little hooks at the end, so you just slide it on top there now. And all you have to do is just put those hooks on top of the studs we have there, and it falls right in place. Now all you have to do is just slide it in, and we're going to put the two first bolts in the middle. Alright, this is what I use on all these bolts, because you want to be able to take them out when you need to take them out in the future. This is going to make it much easier. Alright, we just finished putting the three first bolts. We just took off the last stud and putting in the last bolt into the manifold to the block. Alright, we're almost done installing the manifold in place. Well, at least one of the two. Alright, we just installed the spacer with the 4 bolts that it comes with it, and washers. And what we did before we put the gasket, we put a little bit of gasket maker, some kind of sealant around those 2 holes there, and then put the gasket on it. Now we're going to put a little bit of that same sealant on the top of the 2 holes there, and on that one, and then we're going to put the other gasket, which is the one that has the flange that goes upward, and in a little hole that goes forward on the engine. We'll put that next. Okay, we just added the sealant on this side here, and on that side. That's the gasket with the little flange upward, and the little tiny hole goes to the front. So we have it all set and ready to install the elbow, the riser, or the elbow, whatever you want to call it. Alright, the biggest importance here is make sure not to cross thread any of the bolts. So you do them by hand first, and then you tighten them up. And these are the 4 bolts for the elbow. And then after that, we just have to put a couple of hoses in place, and we're done. Yeah, the biggest importance here is that tighten them in a cross pattern. You do one corner, you go to the other side and do the other corner, and then you go to the next one next to it and do the other corner, and then opposite corner. There you go. Opposite corner.
Right there.
Yeah, it's much easier to tighten the plugs here than it is out there, because you're dealing with a loose part. Here it's already in place, so it's much easier to torque and tighten them up. Okay, and then the last thing we're going to do, well, second to last, is tighten up the clamps for the exhaust. And then we have a hose that goes into that bar down there.
Which one?
Yeah, that one there. And what we're doing here is we're putting the linkage, the throttle and transmission linkage back into the bracket. And it only has 3 screws. That's all it is. Okay, now we're going to work on the port side, and we're going to take off the computer and this little bracket here, loosen up these, and then the 4 bolts up here, then so we can take off the first part, which is the elbow. All right, we just finished pulling the elbow of the port side, getting ready to dismantle the extension. All right, this is the port side. The little hole is still there. This side, there's no obstruction that I can feel, and the exhaust here, it has a lot of rust on it, but I think that's really typical of this part, because salt water comes through here all the time. Salt water is always hitting this, so I don't see any obstructions there. Very little, but it's still there, so I don't see anything really bad with this whole thing. This is the valve with a little ball inside. We're going to check that, make sure that one is loose inside, and again here, no obstructions, everything's clear. It does have the rust, but it's not as bad as I thought, or even the mechanic mentioned that there was a blockage. I don't see any blockage anywhere, unless it's something inside somewhere that we can't see. All right, this plate here comes with the new set, so we're going to leave that one on there, because these bolts here are really difficult to take off, so I'm not going to mess with them. And then we have to put the same plate on the new one. This one is the new one here. It comes with the new one already, so we don't have to worry about it. And it comes with the bolts to put them on there. Then down here, it's where the computer and other vital tools and things that go with the motor. So this is where you bolt those at, the computer and the little relays and fuses with this other thing here. This one should go, let's see here, it's right there. Yeah, perfect. That's how it goes, right there. All right, so here we go. This one's a little tighter still. It was really bad to take off, but we were able to take it off, and there it goes. It's softened up a little bit now. And here's only 3 screws. That's all it is. Okay, I'm gonna have to loosen up this one and make it line up a little bit better. That one, and then we have the last one here. And that's it. Alright, so this barb goes on the top. Where was it at?
This goes towards the front.
So it's on the top here?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's put it in the same place. This one goes on the top here, and then we put a plug on the bottom. All right, here we have the port side manifold, and what we're doing now is prepping everything with the plugs in place. And there's a plug here, and once we put everything in place, and we do the same thing with the elbow and the spacer, and then we'll be ready to go back in there and reinstall everything all at once. But first, we have to prep it with all the plugs, all the necessary attachments that come from the old one to the new one. All right, these 2 pieces of bolts that we made for the studs to slide in the manifolds, this has made the job 100 times easier than if you didn't have these. And all it is just the same bolts that we took off from the elbow. Cut it off to a certain length that you need, and then we did a little slit on the edge so we could take it off with a screwdriver. And this has made this job 100 times easier. All right, we're putting a little bit of the sealant there. The instructions says that you should put a little bit of that on that around there only, not on that side, just around those holes, and the same thing on the other end. And here we did exactly the same thing, put that red stuff on there. And then this is the new gasket, and now we're ready to put this piece, the extension or spacer, in place. Okay, when you put it on there, just be gentle and lay it down there until you get it right on the right spot. And we're putting the bolts on. These are the bolts that go on that bottom part, 4 of these. And normally I always do a little bit of anti-seize on there, and that way we could take them off much easier next time. Yeah, they went in pretty, it was easier than the first one we did.
Way easier on this side.
But,
maybe because we already did it and my homeman already know the deal, but
yeah,
I don't know what it was, but this one felt a little easier this top.
Yeah,
this part.
Because the first one was all a surprise. It's let's see what we need to do next. But here you already know exactly what to do to make it line up perfectly.
Exactly. And we'll do the crisscross pattern here.
Yeah, crisscross on that one and on the top one, and that should be it. And these bolts here, there is spec for the torque foot-pounds, but we don't have one here. But what we're going to do is we're going to seat it all the way down and then give it a little bit more until it just stops. I've seen many people do it like that, and nobody's ever had any problems. Okay, when you put this gasket, little hole to the front of the engine and the bigger one on the back, and this flange here upward, it has a little word there that says up, so that has to go up like that. All right, we're ready to put the elbow in place. Yeah, and again here, crisscross pattern. You go one end, cross, the other end, cross. Okay, here we're just putting back the computer back in place on the bracket. It's only 3 screws, 1 on the bottom, 2 on the top. And then we have the relays. The relays go on that little bracket there. And we'll do that in a minute. All right, after about it's been like 5 hours into this whole thing, and we're completely done. We're just tightening up the exhaust rubber boot there, and we're done. We just double checked all the plugs, make sure everything is tightened. Computer's back in place. The little relays and fuses. This is the fuse box there, and both sides are done, completed. So the next thing we have now, sea trial. The only thing is we're gonna have to do a sea trial tomorrow morning, hopefully, and because right now we need to pick up and roll. We have other things to do, but for now everything is completed, done, ready to go. All right, guys, we have the forklift picking up the boat out of the rack. We're going to put it here at the basin, and we're heading out for that much needed sea trial. Run out of breath because I just ran from one end to the other. But before we did the sea trial, we put on the muffs with water, and started the engine, and so far it didn't do any of the symptoms that we had before, which is that hesitation and trying to stall. It's not doing that. So we're going to put it in the water, head out, and try it out. So stay tuned for more information on this ordeal that we've had for over 3 months.
Even though we did not get any overheating, we did get at least 5 times where the engine hesitated. So that part is still here. But at least we got 1 out of 2. No more overheating.
This right here is what we're going to use to cleanse the inside of the cooling system. They call it boat desalt. Let me tell you something. I've been using Better Boat products for many years on my boat, and they're very good products, and the price is awesome. You can't beat the price. So we're going to go ahead and try out the desalt for the first time, and their kit to do the flush. Okay, all you have to do is just put this fluid all the way to the top there. I'm gonna go ahead and put this on here. All right, here we have the muffs that we're gonna use, provided by Better Boat. This looks really well made, and what I like is that these rubber things here really seal the inlet on the outdrive. I like that. So next thing we do here is we got to put this part onto this one here, and it comes with this thing that you spin here, because there's other ones that you can't spin it and you have to turn this around, and you end up spilling all this fluid all over the place. But this one comes in perfectly right there. Okay, now I'm gonna put the hose
Now is a great time to like and subscribe. All you have to do is click on the subscribe button below. It's free, and you'll be part of the Keys Boating Channel family. Thanks so much for your support.